Welcome back to theCUBE, everyone, here at the New York Stock Exchange CUBE studio, part of our NYSE Wired program, a CUBE original. Of course, we got our Palo Alto studios connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street. We speak both languages. The tech and the capital markets come together. The Wired and the CUBE community are doing its part to share. We got a great mixture of expert on theCUBE here, an AI leader, Jack Hidary, CEO of SandboxAQ. Looking at my notes here, Jack, welcome to theCUBE. You had $1 billion raised in 2 rounds, spinning out of Alphabet, SandboxAQ. So this was like, this is not Y Combinator.
No.
This is not Y.
No.
This is like real deal.
We
Google.
We were nurtured inside of Alphabet, and my big thanks to Sergey, to so many people, Astro Teller, Sergey, and Ruth, and many others at Alphabet for nurturing us in our early years. But the intention always was to spin out in order to really grow a large global company, and thank God we're on the way.
You know, people don't give Sergey and the team enough credit what they're doing with Alphabet, how they structured it. They fostered the innovation, research, commercialization, but yet fun. They do wild moonshot projects, but this, they do an amazing job.
When Ruth Porat came over and created a lot more discipline in the company as CFO initially at Alphabet, and also they realized, Larry and Sergey realized that, hey, we really want to expand and do more stuff here. And Waymo's an example. At that time, it was called Chauffeur. That was the code name for it, Chauffeur. I was lucky enough to be right there and really drive in some of the super early autonomous cars. They were not as smooth as they are today. And to see Waymo so successful today, John, is amazing. They just hit 500,000 paid rides a week. Just a few months ago, and I think they're on track to hit 1 million a week, I think, by end of year.
Finally got into Palo Alto and Mountain View. I've been in San Francisco, dominated, took one just recently. It's fun in Palo Alto, driving down Alma Street. You also authored the book AI or Die, and a textbook in quantum computing, an applied approach, the title.
And AI or Die, John, just because it's literally that is the choice that people have today. It is, for your businesses, either you embrace this stuff or you're not going to exist. And the AI we're talking about here, John, is not just the AI for the digital world, and I'm sure you've had lots of great conversations here at this table about AI, like large language models such as ChatGPT and Gemini and Anthropic. Great models, really a lot of applications in marketing, customer service, legal, for example, is today's news. But where we focus on at Sandbox is AI for the real world. And so when you want to take AI and make a new medicine for cancer, a new treatment for Alzheimer's, when you want a new battery chemistry to store energy, when you want to do new risk modeling, right? We're here in the New York Stock Exchange right now looking at the options floor, and if you want to do those quantitative models, a language model and something trained on cat pictures and videos isn't really your best friend. You want something trained on numbers and equations, and that's where we shine.
Well, I want to dig into it, but I want to just share with you and get your reaction, because I know you run the same agreement, AI for the real world. The 2 hottest things we're covering and we're getting data on is AI and cryptocurrency, the crypto industry, which includes a lot of the things around quantum that you guys are doing. The #1 trend is the convergence of physical and digital.
That's right.
As first party citizens, all the data interacting, real world assets on chain.
That's right.
The #1 topic that's driving the financial stack here in New York. And AI, Jensen, energy.
Talking about AI for the physical world. We're talking about AI for the real world. That is the new big territory for AI. So, of course, the low-hanging fruit a number of years ago when you wanted to train an AI model, the transformer model, was the words of the internet, right? The images, the words of the internet. That made a lot of sense, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, these are very powerful, very useful tools for productivity, for customer service, marketing. But when it comes to the core of the Fortune 500, the core product development, when you want to make that car, you want to make that spaceship, you want to make that battery, you want to make that drug, that takes a new kind of AI. That's AI for the real world.
Yeah, and I like how you bring in the progression, and I want to come back to this because I want to zoom out for the folks watching. And we talked about this on our CUBE pod last Friday. If you look at the generation that we grew up in, the internet was upon us, that came from a lot of the research. Things were on paper. Then the internet came, then the web. Then you had mobile and cloud. That generation in the computer industry was a magical time. Okay, that's over. That was call it big wave 1. Now you got Transformer, some of the stuff early days in AI, and then kind of where we are today. But yet there's a whole path to full autonomy. Take me through your vision on that, because I totally agree with AR die. It's a mandate. It's a pound the table. Get with the program or you're going to be extinct.
Absolutely.
But take me through the path of where we are today, because as we get the physical world on with AI, that's going to change and open up use cases we can't fathom. Like what's unbelievable. So take me through the vision to get autonomous. This is a similar wave. So paper was transformer, internet now feels like ChatGPT, LLMs. But as we start to see agents and the path to physical and autonomy, autonomous things, not just cars, what's your vision on what that path looks like?
Well, exactly, John. A very good analogy to talk about the big wave one that we all experience over a number of decades, because each one of those movements within that big wave led to the next one, right? If you think about it, people listening to this today may remember dial-up modem, okay? The crazy sounds, beep, ba, 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 okay? That was a dial-up modem. Well, when we're in the era of dial-up modems, you really couldn't have YouTube because it wasn't practical to upload and download all those videos. Once broadband and really almost universal broadband came to the US, to Europe, to other places, that was then the birth of YouTube. Google, of course, bought YouTube and then grew it even bigger. And we have the kind of video world that we have today, be it TikTok, be it others as well. So each wave really opens up the opportunity for the next wave, and that's happening now in this.
What is that? What's the sequence? Where are we now? What's that wave?
Right. So the first one was the web itself. Tim Berners-Lee is a friend and informal advisor to us, along with Rosemary Berners-Lee as well, who's an official advisor for us. And I joked with Tim. I said, Tim, congrats for creating the web. You actually ended up creating the largest training set in human history. And that's really what 30 years of the web gave us. It gave us this massive training set, and that's great in terms of the large language models. And kudos also to Google, 2017, the paper Attention is All You Need, which was the paper that defined a new way of architecting neural networks inspired by the brain and having to do that. I really first started using neural networks in medicine when I was working in science at the NIH, bringing neural network ideas to neuroimaging, to brain imaging. So it has a long and rich history there. But now let's look fast forward. Okay, so the low-hanging fruit is the World Wide Web. Download it, make your transformer model, make it work. But the next wave now is really new proprietary datasets that don't exist on the internet. These are special datasets for biochemistry, for catalysts. Viewers may not know this, but almost everything that you're seeing and touching on this set and in your homes or offices watching this now comes from a catalyst. This laptop you have here could not be made except for these compounds called catalysts, which drive a reaction forward quickly with low energy and are not used up in that reaction. It turns out it's really hard, John, to make a catalyst, just like it's hard to make a new drug. AI for chemistry that we have pioneered is now doing that in record time. So this is a very exciting moment now where we're moving from just words as the data set to now quantitative data and equations as the data set. And that's opening up a whole new world of AI that we didn't have before.
All right, so first of all, explain how that works, because I think that's one, exciting and motivating for anyone watching, like, okay, it's going to get better, but it's still hard problems to solve.
Yeah.
So take me through and scope the magnitude of how you do it, what's it take? If there's no data, do you make the data? Do you train it? Is it synthetic data? How's it going on?
So let's start with biopharma, because that's something affects all of us, right? We all want to see new medicines for cancers. We want to see new medicines for neurodegenerative diseases. Unfortunately, most everyone viewing this, their family will be impacted at some point by a neurodegenerative disease. Could be Alzheimer's, could be dementia. Unfortunately, this is going to become almost a pandemic as the population ages. And so you want to make a medicine today. The traditional way of doing that, it takes 10, 15, 20 years, John, to get to that understanding of what that medicine could be. And then you got to go into clinical trials. And before the advent of AI, we're seeing about 85% failure, John, in clinical trials. So what can AI do about that? Well, what we can do is start to make really good simulations first of the chemical world in a computer. And we could do so with the laws of physics itself. And that is something that we always dreamed of. I dreamed of it more than 20 years ago, okay, in science, but now it's happening. Now we and others have worked on this, and now we have computers that have high fidelity between what we imagine in the computer, and then when we synthesize it, what we see in X-ray crystallography, what we see in cryo-electromagnetometry, in cryo-electron microscopy, we now see high fidelity between these two. So this is an exciting moment where for the first time, we can harness in silico to go for the real world.
Do you guys develop your own data sets?
We have to, yes,
Explain,
we absolutely do.
So you
don't use any third-party data in terms of downloading data from the internet or things like that. The first thing we have to do is we have to run lots of experiments. We contract labs in different parts of the world to run thousands and thousands of robotic experiments, things with robot hands, and that is something that you can do out there in the world. We own that data, we take that in, and then we add to it synthetic data based on the laws of physics and chemistry itself. That creates a data set that's unique, that's proprietary to us, and the next step is we can train models on those. And those models are not large language models, because again, we're not dealing with language here.
Yeah.
Those are new kind of models. Those are LQMs, large quantitative models, John.
Yeah, so math's involved and data that's not available.
That's right.
And the Q for quantitative and just quantitative? Is there other non-quantitative?
So we have the
or it's all math, I guess. So
yes, we have the A for AI, we have the Q for quantitative, but also quantum, because the techniques we're using, we're not running them on a quantum computer because those are not ready yet. We're running them on GPUs and other types of accelerated chips, but we have to use quantum equations. We have to use the equations of quantum physics to analyze and understand the relationship between this molecule and that molecule. That's a quantum issue. And the same now, John, we can go beyond biopharma into batteries, into materials, into oil and gas, and those sectors as well.
You know, when I last saw, when I was in DC for NVIDIA's special GTC.
The special GTC in October, yeah.
I asked Jens about AI factories, and I kind of teased it out, and he kind of laid out the dots. I connected it. There'll be micro factories. There's going to be edge and certainly core. But he also answered the question around, you know, how one of the trends he was pointing out is, because he always gets asked the quantum question, but he wanted to address, he says, the GPUs and systems that we're using with Omniverse are actually being used to solve quantum computing. And that was not obvious to most of the analysts, but
well, here's a proof point, John.
Explain, because this is a really important, because the horsepower is helping that. You have stuff like data simulations. I'm sure you got something going on similar with compute.
NVIDIA is not only an investor, but also one of our partners. And with NVIDIA and other partners, we announced just a few days ago AQ Affinity. Right? AQ Affinity is a software platform that we opened up to the world and is now, we believe, the most advanced platform for determining both the structure of those proteins that we want to target in the body, but also the binding affinity between a potential drug and that target protein. So it's doing two things at the same time. 5-10 years ago, the conventional wisdom, John, is that we would never be able to do that on GPUs.
Supercomputing was a terminal that was basically a PC
out of
server.
HAL 9000, yeah, exactly. But we pulled it off last week.
Yeah.
And we're really proud of that, and really proud of our partners. OpenFold 3, OpenFold is our partner. It's a consortium of top academics, of Bayer, of many other pharma companies, and of course, with NVIDIA, our partner as well. We use the DGX cloud via GCP in this case, and this is what allowed us to have this massive breakthrough. So this builds on work that we've done with NVIDIA on the SARE data set, on other data sets. You have to build the really good precision data first. You cannot use random data.
So are you sharing your data set with people?
Yeah, we made the data set public. It's open source right
so
now.
Like
it's online right now.
Like NVIDIA, they're sharing their libraries.
Yes, that's right.
You're doing the same.
In fact, I'm happy to share that that NVIDIA just announced that their DiffDoc, which is one of their key models for looking at molecular development of new pharmaceuticals, is now improved because of the SARE data set that we worked on. It's on their website now.
I really want to call that out because I think two reasons. One, people should know that this is practice in the industry.
That's right.
Number two, it's super impressive that you're doing that and you made that a milestone. Scope the alternative from time to completion to hit that proud moment that you just shared. If you didn't have the supercomputing, the NVIDIA systems, and the AI factories, what would that have been like? I mean, even in a super HPC world, even some cloud, we had old cloud, or I say cloud legacy, if you can call it that, modern legacy.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Because I think researchers should know that this is now available.
Yeah.
This is it's super inspiring. Share the scope of time frame.
John, it's a great question. In 2016, when we got going inside of Alphabet, the conventional wisdom was that it would be many decades for us to get the kind of compute that we needed to do real world kind of stuff with molecules, with energy, with risk management. And we made a bet that the various chip operations, both inside Alphabet and at NVIDIA and other places, would really ramp up on an almost exponential
curve. Which it did.
And that's what happened.
It's a good bet.
And so that was the bet that we made. And sure enough, around 2022, 2023 is when the crossover point happened.
Yeah.
And we started to see we could do real world computation with these kinds of chips.
And you're doing it. All right, now take me through some of the biology side. There's a lot of concentration in biology, chemistry kind of tied together. Pharma you mentioned. What are some of the cool things you see being enabled right now in terms of the breakthroughs?
Well, I think we can see breakthroughs, John, both in new therapeutics. We're working on cancer. We made some announcements with oncology for brain cancer. This is one of the areas that has been one of the most difficult for traditional oncology. I think we're going to see breakthroughs there. We've talked about our work with UCSF and Stan Prusiner, a Nobel Prize winner. That's in terms of neurodegenerative diseases, in Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. Very, very important there as well. So those are more important. But also, let's look at the energy sector. The energy sector we need now more than ever because we need to power buildings like this, and we need to power data centers. And we need novel battery chemistries. We need novel ways of producing, storing, and transmitting energy as well. And that's all material science. And so AI for material science, Sean, is, to me, one of the new uncharted territories here.
I have to ask you on the business side, you got the $1 billion in funding, which is, I like the way you did that. You got great investors, got the long game view for sure.
Long horizon investment.
Long horizon view. So if you look at some of the successes, the old school mentality on corporate strategy and governance was you got corp dev, you got your divisions, and you got the R&D labs, applied, and you got weird R&D.
Yeah, that's a red alert.
Yeah.
Once you see a different R&D lab from the core divisions, red flag on the play.
All right, so and then the modern version for AI is interesting. They bring in almost forward deploying R&D a little bit further in. How are you looking at? Because you must be really leaning in with R&D. All the successful AI companies have a strong bench of R&D research.
Yeah.
R&D.
Yeah.
How do you look at the role of research as you start to commercialize all this?
Yeah. For us, the R&D is part and parcel of the product itself. It is not some separate division out there that we say, hey guys, how you doing over there in the R&D division, and what do you have to throw?
Yeah, call me when you get a breakthrough.
Yeah, and that's what the lessons we all learned from Xerox PARC and things like that. Massive breakthroughs, but never made it over the wall to commercialization. And so I think the more modern way of doing things is to embed it all together. We've got more than 125 PhDs in our company, very technical company, PhDs in physics, chemistry, biology, AI, mathematics, cybersecurity. And then we've got about 100 engineers, coding engineers, other kinds of engineers on top of the PhDs who are working together with the PhDs side by side to translate their insights into scalable code. And so that's really what this game is about. What it's about is taking domain knowledge that's specific to particular areas, combining across disciplines. That's really powerful. And then the next step is to use code to make it scalable and usable to a huge number of clients.
It's like, remember the old pair programming days?
Yeah.
Like, you're like pairing human capital and intellectual capital all together.
Yeah.
So that's like real synergistically cohesive.
Oh, these are special folks in our company. I'm super proud of what they've been able to accomplish, John. Every time a challenge is put to them by a customer, they overcome that challenge.
All right, so
this is really an incredible.
So I'm curious about the company culture. Intel has Moore's law, doubling every whatever.
Yeah.
Which is now some people are saying is dead, but we'll see what Lip2 does with that one. I still like Intel personally. I love the company. What's your culture? Do you have a cadence of something? What would be describing your culture with all that horsepower? And rocket fuel.
Yeah.
What would be the culture like?
The core 4 words of our culture are deep impact at scale. The reason why people come to work every single day, what drives people, what drives me, is having significant impact in the world, but at scale, right? And that's what's key now. Right now, because of AI, relatively small teams can have global impact. right? You've seen that with us. You've seen that with many other companies as well. You don't have to have 10,000 people in your company to have very significant impact. So deep impact at scale is number one. Number two, a learning culture. I love being inside of our company because every day I'm learning so much. I'm learning for the people around us. We hire people who are way more knowledgeable in so many areas than I am. And so I'm learning a lot. And what I hear from everyone else is they're learning a lot too in this beehive of learning. So I think those are two of the hallmarks that we have there. And also bar raising. This is something that we learned from a number of other company cultures. When you're hiring somebody, it's very easy to fall into the trap of hiring somebody that you know, or hiring somebody who knows a friend, and so on and so forth. And the bar raiser is somebody who comes in.
Amazon does that.
That's right. Amazon is one of the examples. They come in from not your team, some other team. Sometimes it's our legal counsel, sometimes it's somebody else. And they make sure to ask the hard devil's advocate questions on that hiring committee.
Yeah.
And actually, we've turned down 45 people just on that. But
And Amazon, the bar raiser is a veto vote.
Yes. We do the same thing here. And so it's a very powerful tool. Interesting stat, John, we're about 250 people or so in our company. If you go to our website, we have about 20 or so open positions, 25 open positions. How many people have applied to our company in say 2025, past 12 months? I asked the team that question. I was expecting maybe a few thousand people had applied. The answer is more than 45,000 people applied to SandboxAQ in the last 12 months. And because people, I think, want to have impact.
Most companies want your scraps.
Yeah. People want to have that impact, John.
Yeah, and I think a culture like that sets the bar, and it's like it's like when you were a kid, you had to be this tall to ride the roller coaster. You got to have a certain level.
Yeah.
Raise that bar. All right, cool. First of all, I could go on, but my final question before we get into some of the security things I'm interested in is, as physical AI comes out and becomes more prevalent, like you at Google, at Alphabet, you saw Waymo come from scratch. That's a great example. People can view that, autonomous cars, but there's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Explain your vision on physical AI.
Sure.
Computer vision, full convergence. What does that look like?
Yeah. As we bring the world, the physical world, the human world, and AI together, this is going to yield incredible benefits for humanity. And it's going to take us more than a decade, from today to really play this out as a whole industry. Let's take self-driving and autonomous cars to begin with. These are really robotics. That's really what this is. Not really a car, it's robotics. People mistake Tesla as a car company. It's not a car company, it's a robotics company. And Elon now is making even more clear moves to signal that, where he's at least temporarily putting a couple of models on hold to really focus on Optimus and focus on that. But ultimately, what the robo-taxi is, it is a robot. And that's what Waymo is as well. It's taken 17, 18 years to get to this stage with Waymo, and now you see that really the scale and also the experience. You've had now the pleasure of being in a Waymo, and that little screen in the back, I think, is what gives me, at least, and a lot of other people, that peace of mind. Showing you what the computer sees, right? And so that transparency into the mind of the AI, this is going to be a hallmark going forward for the integration of AI and human life. We need to see what the AI sees. That gives us more comfort.
And the Spotify's good too. There's music on there.
Yeah, that's right.
It knows your name.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So to me, that's one area that integrates vision, integrates human experience, integrates obviously mapping the world. And you have some interesting startups now. You have Fei Li, one of our advisors, started a company called World Labs that's helping to make these world models. Jan LeCun, one of our investors, has gone out now, left Meta, and is raising money now and doing very well for AMI. AMI is the name of his new company. Again, a very interesting world model company based on JEPA, which is a fascinating approach, and I think is going to have tremendous progress as well. So you're beginning to see the wave of companies post LLM. And this is a very exciting area.
I love that post LLM view, and I think it's going to be one of those moments where you start to see the progression that you were talking about earlier.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about the quantum side of the Q. You got the quantitative, which is physical things that aren't in LLMs. Quantum computing is, on one hand, like, it's just fantasy. On the other, it's a nightmare for some. There's work being done. I've interviewed Cloudflare and a bunch of other companies that are doing the technical work now of figuring out, okay, how do I start migrating my keys?
That's right.
Because those private keys are on the dark web, waiting for They've been harvested.
Yeah.
They're waiting. So people are scared. I mean, some level.
And this brings us back, John, to cryptocurrency as well, right? So when you look at the quantum threat Q-Day, we call it, as when quantum computers will rise up in terms of their capabilities and scale and error correction, and have the ability to run some version of Shor's algorithm from Peter Shor in 1994, but now an updated version that allows it to crack RSA, to crack ECC, to crack the fundamental protocols that we use in this building here, in the stock exchange building, and in banking and telco, in governments around the world. So this is
and Bitcoin.
Yes, and when we get to Bitcoin and Ethereum, and Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, just got on stage a few weeks ago and said, we must migrate now. Right, this is not something you can wait on. You can't wait till the last minute on this kind of thing. This has to happen now. So we are seeing some banks starting to move. We're seeing some governments start to move. I do think we need more push from the government. The good news is NIST did its work well. They have great standards now that have been put out there, published out there. We and many others had a lot to do with getting those standards done. Thousands of researchers and academic and industrial participants. So the good news, NIST standards are there for PQC, post-quantum cryptography, but now it's time to get out there.
Yeah.
But the here and now threat, John, right now, is AI and cyber. So 75–80% of
from a security standpoint.
Yes, yes,
okay.
Exactly. So 75–80% of all big companies now are using Gen AI. The problem, John, is that only 6% of those companies have an AI plan. What we call SPM, Secure Posture Management. AI SPM means that you have a plan and an implementation framework for keeping the use of AI secure. Example, agents. You might say, oh, I have agents running around my network. Okay, I'm going to have some productivity. But now you're also going to have some hackers, because hackers know that if they get hold of the password and login of that agent, we call it NHI, non-human identity, they can have the run of the show. And so agents both...
And recruit other agents.
Exactly. So agents, and we're seeing now with Moltbook and things like that, so agents certainly can give us productivity, but also they open the door to hackers having more capability inside the enterprise.
And what are the problems with that? Is it because the folks are running too hard and fast and loose, or is it more of there's just new implementations happening? Well, what's the issue?
Yeah, the issue is that things are moving really fast. People are excited about this technology. I understand that, but they're bringing it in so fast. We have a technology called ActiveGuard. It just announced that it's being used by the Pentagon after 2 years of testing. And in mission-critical areas such as the Pentagon, such as banks, such as large companies, such as a stock exchange, it's fundamental. We must have the security. And yes, it is very exciting to have agents, but we must use them in a secure fashion. The good news is we now can do that, but many people start doing the AI work without the security. That's a problem.
You can hear the bell for the Mad Money show being filmed at the same time. Jack, I have to ask you as we close out here, I wish we had more time. We'll certainly do a follow-up. It's a great story. Talk about the origination story in a little more detail. When did it really initiate in Google? When was the spin out officially happen? When did that all go down?
Yeah.
And looking back to that and now, what's been the biggest change?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just one note on the real origin story was I had the vision for this more than 2 decades ago when I was a scientist at NIH, and seeing all the failure around me, people trying out this drug, that drug, clinical trials here and there. I was working in Building 10 of NIH, which is where we have the clinical center, the patients, the human patients, and it was a very big privilege, John.
So you had an itch you've been scratching for 20 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Where's the horsepower? Where's the compute?
Where's the compute? Where are the chips? Where are the algos? Okay. And
by the way, a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork because this AI whole. I mean, in the '80s when I got my CS degree, I had there was AI going on, theory, but there was no where's
So waiting for a long time. We did show that neural networks would have tremendous power. Even back then, we showed that. But now, with the kind of capabilities we have, this is what's exciting. When Google decided to launch Alphabet and recruit folks like myself, who had both a deep science experience a deep science and technical background as well as a business background, I saw that as a really good fit for these kinds of big challenges. You can call them moonshots, you can call them global challenges.
I think they called them moonshots at the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But these are the kinds of things that we want to do with technology. And so to me, it was a great marriage to come together with the folks at Google and Alphabet.
If you don't mind me asking, Jack, was it, explain what the culture and vibe was at that time, because if I remember that time correctly, Sergey still was around. It was more of like a academic. There wasn't a lot of pressure, but it was a mandate. It wasn't like, people banging you every day, or what was it like? What was the vibe like?
The blessing was that Sergey gave us all tremendous platform to explore, to experiment. It wasn't pressure to say, oh, I need a product in 3 months, right? It was about wide-ranging experimentation to think about what is going on, and people like Astro Teller and others really allowing that to flow. And Sergey is somebody who's really interested in the next wave of humanity, of where things are going.
And hard problems too.
Yeah, physics, AI, these are the core areas that really interest him, and also benefiting humanity. And
so you had a frame, what you were bringing to the table, and a clean canvas.
That's right.
So you had a clean sheet of paper, so you essentially had to...
And I knew, John, that these twin engines, AI and quantum, would be the keys. I knew that this would be transformative. And big shout out, obviously, to Eric Schmidt, who also helped us out while I was inside Alphabet, and then, of course, joined us as chairman as we spun out.
And he's nerd too, so he gets the big shots
absolutely.
too. He understands the okay. It's a big win. It's a classic Silicon Valley, go big or go home.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
And you're going big.
Yeah. And it took us a number of years. This is not an overnight kind of thing.
It's just patience.
It takes a number of years. And then with the spin out, the whole idea always was to spin out, because ultimately, if you want to, make a big global platform, you've got to be an independent.
When was the spin out?
The spin out,
roughly.
The spin out was mid-2022.
Okay, so recently, but so incubation wise, how many years?
So about 5-6 years of incubation, and now we've been spun out independent for about 3.5 years.
Well, it's a super great story, and it's great that you're also a distinguished author. Love the title, AI or Die, and you're very passionate about the fact that you will die if you don't as a company, and obviously textbook too. Jack, congratulations, and again, well done. We'll have more conversations. And again, you're in the heart of the action, and also forward actions coming. You're in the line, but you're also watching it. You're skating with the puck.
Yeah.
You're not even going to where the puck is going to be. You're kind of skating with the puck.
It's a very exciting time, John, and I just encourage our viewers to really jump on your show, because you have so many interesting interviews here. Jump on our YouTube channel. If I can encourage people to check out the SandboxAQ YouTube channel, it's free. We've got over 100 million views on the channel, and we're not a content company at all. We're just trying to share where things are going. And so we'd love to work more with you, John. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'd love to. And people, there's an appetite. If you're out there, there's so much great content. Sometimes you can not even have to be a PhD to have PhD kind of critical thinking.
Yeah.
This is the world opportunity that's in front of us. As the societies come together, physical and digital, it's going to open up more opportunities to affect change. Stories drive movements. This is a great movement, Jack. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
John, great to be here.
Okay, I'm John Furrier. The AI factories are coming. The mixture of experts are all coming here in theCUBE at the New York Stock Exchange as part of our CUBE's NYSE Wired program. Thanks for watching.